So, hey guys, are you frustrated with where you're at right now? Maybe stunted in your progress? Well, if you are, I want to recommend a place for you to go called Growth Day. growthday.com/ed. It is the #1 personal development app on the planet. It's got all kinds of high performance techniques in there, courses, accountability, journaling, live speeches from some of the top influencers in the world, including me. It's an overall environment to change your life. growthday.com/ed. In order to make these choices requires coming from a place of confidence, in my opinion. And you talk about 3 levels of confidence. This is awesome stuff right here. So could you give them the gift of that?
Yeah, I always think that confidence is this sort of oversimplified umbrella word for all sorts of different things that don't necessarily have a lot to do with each other. To me, I needed a kind of unifying model for confidence. I'm a hyper-rational person. If someone's speaking and the thing that they say about self-worth contradicts the thing they said 3 sentences ago, I'm like, you've lost me.
Yep, me too.
I developed a model for confidence that said, okay, there's the surface level, which is level 1, and that's how we portray ourselves and how we're perceived based on the way we walk, talk, and act. Hours and hours of content on that alone, but we all know what we're talking about when we say someone looks confident on the surface.
Yes.
Then there's the identity level of confidence.
Okay.
And this we might think of as the legs under the table that underpins the confidence so that the moment it's tested, it doesn't just fall apart. And that's, you know, there are plenty of people that have bravado that the moment it's tested, it disintegrates. You know, you have someone has a hard conversation with you and all of a sudden it goes apart, falls apart. The identity level is, I like to think of the identity level as everything that we use as a source of confidence in our lives. And they can be many. It can be the skills we have. It can be the life we've set up for ourselves. It could be the relationships that we have. It could be the family support system we have, the contacts that we have. For some people, it might be the fact that they feel like they're well-traveled. Or that they have they know 3 languages, or they can play an instrument, or they're a very good conversationalist. We all have these things that create what I call identity confidence. And I think of that as a kind of matrix with a bunch of squares in it, like a tic-tac-toe box. And inside are all these different things that give you confidence. And no one's matrix looks uniform where all the squares are the same. In reality, what happens is we come to identify, and some would say over-identify, with certain aspects of our life that give us confidence. You know, why is it that in a recession, someone who isn't going to starve decides that they need to end it all? Why? It's because it's not because they lost all their money. It's because they lost their identity.
Wow. Yes.
And the same can be true of a relationship. You know, someone comes out of a marriage, well, maybe they fought so hard for that marriage for so many years that they lost themselves. They lost all the things that made them them, all the things they enjoyed doing, all of the hobbies, the friendships, the close relationships, and they just poured themselves into this marriage. And then when divorce happens, that was the giant square of their matrix, and anything else in their life had been reduced to these tiny little squares around it. And so when they lose this square, it's not that you lost a marriage, it's that you lost your identity. It's not the death of a part of your life. It feels like the death of your soul. And so in that moment, people feel like, I can't survive. When we lose our identity in that way, it's terrifying for us. You can get the same thing with a bodybuilder who gets injured and all of a sudden they can't train. And that they'd made that 90% of their matrix was their ability to define and sculpt their body. And now life can't be about that because they're injured. So all of a sudden life has to become about something else. So that's the identity level. That's level 2. And what I always say to people on that level is you have to look at the way your matrix is engineered right now and say, where am I exposed? Because and if you want to know where you're exposed, ask yourself, what area of my life, if I lost it, has the potential to destroy my confidence? And that will allow you to go, where do I need to diversify where I get my confidence from. And you know, of course, the areas where we identify with the most, they tend to be the things that we use for validation or the things that we think are the most important in life. And I always say our validations become our mutations. You know, if you get really good in business and you keep making more money and making more money and making more money and everyone rewards you for that, it's really easy to let everything else fall by the wayside. But now you've got, you know, a parent who spends no time with their kids because it's like, this is the big part of my matrix that I need to keep feeding. And it's scary to diversify. When you diversify, you go back to being a toddler in a new area until it becomes a source of confidence. You know, you could have someone who's incredibly, you know, their sarcasm, which they call their wit, may be a huge part of their matrix. If you say to someone, hey, look, this sarcasm is getting in the way of your relationships because there's a time when sincerity is called for and people are not going deep with you because you throw too many barbed comments in a conversation and no one feels like they really get to connect with you. It would really behoove you to start having more sincere conversations. Well, you have a problem here. This person has been using this sarcasm probably their whole life. And if they're going to suddenly switch to a different style of speaking to people or conversation, well, that was working for them in many ways. It was it made them feel witty. It gave them power in conversations. It made them feel like they knew how to handle difficult people. It made them know how to break a silence. If you take all of that away, they're back to being a toddler in conversation who doesn't know how to walk yet. And that's okay, but we hate having to go back to suck at something.
You're right.
And that inability to go back and be bad at something so that we can actually build it as another source of confidence and diversify it is crucial. So all of that is happening at the identity level, but there will be no shortage of people in mindfulness circles who will say, all identification is the problem. Like that identity level right there is the problem in itself, is that we identify. I identify as being great in business. I identify as being someone who is, always there for people.
Athlete, a pro
athlete. Yeah, this identification is the source of your unhappiness, and you have to stop identifying and create space between your consciousness and the identification that have become one. I think I'm a big fan of all of that material, but I also know that every day we are facing out to meet the world, and we have to decide how to spend our time. And if you can spend your time and allocate your energy in ways that diversify your confidence on the identity level, it still makes sense to. You just have to know that anything on the identity level will still leave you vulnerable ultimately, because friends can leave, relationships can end, your health can go away, you can get injured, your business can go under, anything can happen at any point that will rock you in that moment. Having diverse sources of confidence can help you manage those moments where you get rocked, but you can get rocked on that level all the same. And God forbid 4 or 5 big areas for you go down at the same time. Now you've got a confidence crisis, and that has to be solved at the deepest level of confidence, which is level 3. And that's core confidence. And core confidence is, if surface level confidence is the relationship that is the way that other people see you, core confidence is the way you see yourself. And this is the cliche about what I call core confidence and the way other people talk about this kind of depth of confidence. The cliche is that you have to learn how to love yourself. And that sentence there, I think, is the beginning of all sorts of trouble and inadequacy that people get themselves into. I think that this concept of self-love that we have,
say it needs a rebranding.
It needs a huge rebranding.
In what sense? By the way, can I just interject one thing? What you're doing here is magic and profound. What you just did on these 3 levels of confidence. That's cutting edge work right there.
Thank you.
It's outstanding work. Like stamp of approval, awesome. As is this next thing you're going to talk about, which by the way, this core confidence is huge, but also this idea that self-love needs a rebranding. I told you I read every word of the book, so let's talk a little bit about that.
I'm honored that you spent the time. I know this area intimately because I struggled with it for so much of my life.
Okay.
This idea of loving yourself, it's become a kind of bumper sticker,
Right.
Instagram meme.
Yes.
And I think so much of the advice out there is so unhelpful. And that's not me knocking the people giving the advice. I just think that, again, I'm a hyper-rational person. Something needs to be bulletproof in its logic for me to be able to take it on board. And whenever I would hear about self-love, I would go, well, why? Okay, then why should you love yourself? And people would come up with answers like, well, because you're kind, and because you're loving, and because you're, an amazing human being, and because you're always there for people, and because you work so hard. And to me, that would always, in a way, keep taking it back up to the identity level.
True.
Because it was like, what you're listing about, if you're giving those as reasons I should love myself, it's like you're listing all these traits.
You're right.
Like I'm a top trump card. I don't know if you have a version of that in America.
Yeah.
Like I'm a card that, like, these are all the attributes. And because I score kindness at a 9 out of 10, that's why I should love myself. And then I was like, but then what about days where I'm not kind? What about days where I'm selfish? What about times in my life where I screw up? What about times where I don't work hard, where I feel lazy? Are you saying I'm not lovable on those days, but I'm lovable on the others? And then people would go, no, it's not like that. And I go, well, then why should I love myself? If it's not based on those things, and those things are really just another version of, I love you because you get straight A's.
That's right. I was literally just going to say that. If you bring home the report card, we love you.
Exactly.
I was literally just going to say that.
So I was like, how do we get out of this system we have for ourselves? And by the way, the way they're saying it is also a reflection of what they're doing to themselves and the way they're judging themselves. So how do we get out of this report card system? And by the way, those things might be why you're proud of yourself.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about a bulletproof recipe for self-love, then you can't be talking about attributes that I have on my best day and not my worst day. Because then you're saying I'm not lovable half the time, or I'm not lovable the times when I do wrong. And by the way, the time I'm in need of self-love the most is
those days
when I'm doing everything wrong, and when I've screwed up, and when I feel shame and I'm judging myself and hating myself because I've hurt someone, or because I've made a mistake that's hurt me, because I've done things in my life that I'm like, oh, I really damaged my life with that mistake. Oh, I've really hurt myself with that mistake. I can never go back from that. And I've spent years beating myself up about mistakes. So I went, I need a better recipe for self-love than this. And I had to start looking for other models.
Okay.
Now, if you look to the romantic model for love, that doesn't work for self-love. The romantic model for love is, you fall for someone, right? And Esther Perel puts it beautifully in her work, the difference between love and desire. That love is the coming together of two people, but desire, that thing that makes you want to fall in love with someone, that exists in the space between two people. You need space for there to be desire. Love wants to bring you together. Space needs room to breathe. Right? So, and by the way, the inverse of that is the saying, familiarity breeds contempt. So if you look at the relationship with yourself, the one where you've spent every waking moment of that in that relationship, your entire life, since the day you were born, you've been with yourself. What relationship are you more familiar with than that? There is no room for desire with yourself. So
the romantic model doesn't work.
The romantic model doesn't work, and that's why I believe that's why we have so much contempt for ourselves, because who are we more familiar with?
Very good.
So I said, okay, we're not narcissists. We can't look in a pool of water and instantly just fall in love with ourselves, right? That's what happened with Narcissus in Greek mythology. For us, we look in the mirror every day and we're like, I hate myself. I can't get myself to love myself. What are you talking about? I barely like myself, let alone love myself. So, okay, romantic model doesn't work. What could work? Well, what if we could look at other places in life where there was a different kind of model for love? What would it be? I started looking at the parent-child relationship and saying, if you ask a parent why they love their child, how many, maybe some would, but how many parents as a percentage would start reeling off qualities of their kid? If you said, why do you love your kid? How many of them would go, well, because they get straight A's, and because they're kind, and because they're loving, and because they're... If you ask most parents why you love your kid, they go, because it's my kid. What do you? They give you like almost a strange expression.
It's unconditional.
Yeah, that's
right? There's no condition to their performance on straight A's.
Yeah, they're mine. What do you mean?
Okay.
It's my kid.
Okay.
That, for me, held a clue.
What's the clue?
That there are people in this life that we love for no other reason than they're ours. I feel the same way about my brothers. On their worst days, you ask me why I love my brothers. I'm like, because they're my brothers. Good. Now, not everyone feels like that about sibling, but it's common in the parent-child relationship. You can find it in other places too. You can find it in the child and the stuffed toy relationship.
Yes.
Tell a child to get rid of the stuffed toy because you've got a better-looking one.
Yeah.
I've got one that hasn't got fluff coming out the seams. That child will be like, what are you talking about? That's my rabbit.
It's true. It sounds crazy, but I'm thinking of my dogs. I know that sounds crazy.
No, the dog is the perfect example.
Right.
If you can walk down the street and see someone walking the ugliest, scraggliest, mangiest dog, and try walking up to that dog owner and saying, I've got a more stately, beautiful dog for you if you want to swap. They'll be like, what are you talking about? This is my dog.
Great point.
So now imagine something. This is the part that changed my life. What if when someone said to us, what if someone said to you, Ed, why do you love yourself? And instead of going to any of those traits or things you do on your best days or things you think make you unique or special or all of that, because all of that is just another way to judge yourself when you find someone who's better.
You're right.
What if instead someone said, Ed, why do you love yourself? And you said, what do you mean? Because I'm mine. I'm mine. I'm my human. Think of it this way. Out of 8 billion people on this earth, you're the only person that's there to truly take care of this human. There's no one else. I think of it like our parents, whether they did a good job or not is irrelevant. They just had the responsibility for keeping us alive until a point where it was like, over to you. This is your job. Your job is to take care of this one human. And I sometimes think of it like the Lion King when Simba leaves the pride. I think of it like he left himself. Like the pride is him. It's his job to look after the pride. The pride is you. Yes. You're the one human that you have been given to take care of. Nothing else is certain. The one thing you must do in this life is take care of this one human that you've had since the beginning. And anytime I'm being horrible to myself, beating myself up, anytime I'm telling myself I'm not good enough, I go, Matt, what's wrong with you? You had one job. You had one job. Take care of this human. And by the way, through that lens, comparing ourselves because this is what makes us not like ourselves, is comparison. I'm comparing myself to this person, this person, this person. They've got more than me. They're better looking than me. They're more intelligent than me. They're whatever. Comparison makes no sense through that lens because you realize it's irrelevant. I can't exchange my human.
Yes, right. You're right.
I can't swap my human out for another human. I got given a human.
It's me.
Right. Yeah. My only job is how happy can I make this human? And if I was treating it like that, like it was my job, it's not, I don't have to love myself as a noun. I have to love myself as a verb. Whoa. It's my job to love this human. Whoa. That changes everything because here's the big part that I think would help a lot of people. It's helped me. When you look at it through that lens, you don't even have to like yourself to love yourself. You might not like yourself today, and that's okay. You might be frustrated with yourself. You might have a lot of mistakes and things that are hurting you or things you wish you'd done differently. You might not like the way you're living right now, whatever. You might not like yourself, but you can still love yourself and the liking part can come later.
Oh, brother, whoa. I introduced you today by saying I'm really proud of your evolution. Bro, you're on a profound magic streak with your work right now. Listen to me. This is everyone. You rewind the last 15 minutes of this interview, the last 2 things we've covered. Are you kidding me? Has there ever been, bro, that's some of the best stuff I've ever heard. And you made one distinction there because the self-love thing the other way, for me, I have a hard time with is when someone's not, I just love myself the way I am, and you know that they're capable of being healthier or not, someone's shooting heroin, and I've always thought, like, yeah, I love myself the way I am, but what you've just made a distinction on there is so profound is you can love yourself and not like yourself. And that not like yourself part is the part of you that can create change, that can say, look, I love myself, but I don't like the way that my nutrition is, or I don't like the way that I am treating myself. So there's that distinction, because the other side of the self-love thing that I think is negative is like, it's just accept everything you do, but you made the distinction between love and like, and that is a huge distinction. You must always love yourself because you're your only human. Bro, I'm going to repeat this like 100 times the next 2 days, what you just said to people. That is some of the best stuff I have ever heard come out of someone's mouth about life and confidence and loving oneself. Like the best.
Thank you, Ed.
So good.
That difference, I think, is so crucial because it also makes a distinction between when you really love yourself, it starts from a place of total acceptance. And acceptance isn't I like everything about myself. Acceptance is just I'm making peace with my starting point.
Oh, it's so good.
And that changes everything, because there's a big difference between self-acceptance and self-esteem. Self-esteem is built by what we do. Self-esteem is built by sticking to your promises and all of the things that you talk about all the time that build that pride and that knowledge that you can make things happen, that you need reference points for. And when you do hard things, you build reference points, and that builds that self-esteem. But self-acceptance on this deepest level is about making peace with where you're starting from. And that is one of the most beautiful things you can ever do for yourself. And by the way, all self-esteem, I believe, starts from that ultimate acceptance of what our starting point is. Because if you don't accept your true starting point, and if you're lying about your true starting point, you won't even feel good when you do things that should give you self-esteem. Like here's a fun example.
So
if I had, let's say I'm 100 grand in debt, but I've told the world that I have 100 grand in the bank. Everyone, my friends and family, they all think I have 100 grand in the bank, but really I have 100 grand of credit card debt. Now, if I do something wonderful, every day I wake up and I work and I save, or I invest, and I am sensible with my money, and I start paying it off, and let's say I pay off 20% of it. I'm now down to 80 grand in debt. That's amazing. You've paid off a fifth of your debt. It's amazing. That should be celebrated.
Yes.
But you can't celebrate it because everyone thinks you have 100 grand in the bank. And so something that actually should have given you a true milestone in your self-esteem.
You weren't honest about where you're really starting from.
No, and so no one can celebrate you. No one can support you. You feel alone in it, and you feel like you don't feel like you made any progress. All you feel is, I'm still 80 grand in debt, and everyone thinks I have 100 grand in the bank. And that happens, by the way, at the end of so many marriages where someone is getting divorced and the world has felt like that was a great marriage from the outside. And you've been talking about it as if everything is fine because you've been afraid to talk about just how bad it's been and just how unhappy you've been, or your partner's been, or just how, in some cases, abusive that relationship has been. And now you find yourself on the brink of divorce. Again, it's that I'm losing my identity here, because everyone on the identity level, everyone has thought that I'm in this happy marriage. But when I work with people, the moment they can accept what their true starting point is, which is that I haven't had the marriage I've been telling people I had for the last 10 years. I have not been happy. This has been crushing my soul or my confidence. I am starting again in this area of my life. Maybe in some ways I'm starting again financially, because this divorce is going to devastate me financially. Maybe I'm going to have to truly, I'm going to have to go and get a job I never thought I'd have to go and get. I'm going to have to fend for myself again in ways. I'm going to have to move out of this house and into an apartment. I'm going to, all of these things that have to happen. You have to strip back all of the layers of what everyone thinks I am and just say, this is my actual starting point today. And people are so afraid to do that. And I understand, because we're terrified of the loss of ego and the reputation and what would happen if people did realize I wasn't where I thought I was. and this identity I've constructed for myself. But if you can start from that place of total acceptance and almost imagine like, okay, let's just play an experiment for a moment. Imagine I just got given this human today. And this human's starting point, it was like a video game. This human starting point is they're starting newly single again at 50. They are financially, they have this much in the bank. They have to go and get themselves back on their feet. If you saw that as like a video game and you just got given this human starting today to play this game, you'd be excited. You'd be like, what a fun thing to get to do. But it's all that baggage and that identity that makes it all seem like it's the end of the world. And the beautiful thing is, when you take even the tiniest step forward from that place, but now you're honest with the world and yourself, most importantly, when you take a tiny step forward, it may, to your previous self who was putting on the mask of where you were, it may have been nothing. But to you now, from an honest starting point, it's a miracle, and it is a sign that you're growing and moving and that life is changing, and that the confidence that comes from that is real. Wow. And it's yours. The gains are yours at that point.
Okay. Unbelievable. I'm just sitting here, brother. Like you, when I hear something, I put it through my stress test or litmus test of validity, right? So as you're talking, let me tell you what I was thinking of. I want to unpack a little bit of that. And then this has been so good. Like I have 100 more questions. I'm going to get to one more, which frustrates me. But so my dad, a profound thing in my life is my dad getting sober. And I was thinking about what happened when my dad got sober. 3 elements took place. Number one, my dad had to actually love himself enough at that point to accept where he really was. So what you just said a minute ago is so profound. You have to have self-acceptance, right? So my dad had to love himself enough to accept, I can't control this anymore. I'm an alcoholic. My life is out of control. Simultaneously, he did not like the way he was behaving or like himself. So there is a massive distinction between those things. In fact, that not liking it is one of the things that caused him to do it. But here's how profound it is. Once he got sober, to your point, and admitted what his real starting point was, then the smallest, tiniest step was huge. That first day of being sober was a big deal. 30 days, you get a chip in the AA program. Just 30 days of not drinking. There's millions of people who go 30 days without drinking. But to my dad, that was massive, even though for most people, that's a small step. But it started with loving himself to accept where he was and acknowledge that as the starting point. That's only when you can create change. He didn't like himself at that time. In fact, he didn't like himself at all. But that is the recipe and the formula. Bro, what you're working on right here is cutting edge, huge stuff for people to understand. Like everyone, I always tell you, you need to share this episode with anybody who wants to build some baseline confidence, create some level of change, and have these relationships with other people and themselves, and obviously with life. So good, Matthew.
Thank you. And just to add one more thing there, when we do that over time, I almost would encourage people to look at it the same way we look at parenting, which is that so many of the rewards come later. That, when I talk to parents, and maybe this is true for you, Ed, they talk about so many of the rewards being when they've grown up.
That's true.
And then you get the reward for all of that love that you gave these people that they may not have appreciated at the time, or they may not have really seen for what it was at the time or how much you were doing for them, but it comes later. And if we're starting again with ourselves today, you can see yourself like a teenager who might not appreciate it right now, but sooner or later, the like will catch up to the love.
Wow. Brother, unbelievable. I got to tell you, unbelievable. So, hey, guys, as you know, I've partnered up with my good friend Brennan Burchard, who's created the greatest personal development system that has ever been designed, called Growth Day. There's everything from journaling to accountability programs, live messages every Monday from myself and other influencers. There's an opportunity for you to get courses that would cost thousands of dollars completely for free. It's incredible. Go to growthday.com/Ed and check it out.
One of the questions I get, Ed, from sometimes leaders who are a bit earlier in their career, and they're high potentials though, you could tell they're gonna be something, but for some reason they don't believe that yet. They either have some imposter syndrome, a lack of confidence. Maybe it's through not having enough experience. I'm not really sure. I think this is hard, but one of the skills, if someone said, Ed, I am struggling developing confidence in my earlier part of my career. I see you and you've done all this amazing stuff over the past couple of decades. What are some ways that someone a bit earlier in their career could create and develop confidence for themselves?
Great question. I have a whole chapter 2 and I think 3 on confidence and identity, which are different things. So self-confidence is the process of keeping the promises that you make to yourself. So when I meet somebody that lacks self-confidence, they've not built a reputation with themselves where they keep confidence. That's one type of confidence. Now let's talk about the leadership part of it. You've got to start to surround yourself with people that live at a higher temperature setting. Your identity is like a thermostat sitting on the wall. It sets the temperature of your life. So if you're a 75 degreer of, let's say, leadership or wealth or improvement, when you begin to acquire the skills of 80, 90, 95, 100 degrees, and you're climbing the corporate ladder, but you don't change your thermostat setting, you will unconsciously find a way to cool things back down to what you believe you're worth and you deserve. That's that imposter syndrome. And so you got to work on your identity, which is who you're surrounding yourself with at any given time. The second thing is this. This is huge. When I was a young man, I met a guy named Wayne Dyer, famous personal development guy. And he told me, Mylett, you're going to change the world, Ed. And I said, what? He goes, you're going to change the world. And he said, and not because you're a good teacher or you're smart or you got a great voice or whatever, because that stuff's nothing. He said, you're a good man. You intend to serve. I have a whole chapter in this book, brother, on linking your confidence to your intention. So most of you are, well, I don't know all the answers. My favorite leader goes, I don't know the answer to that, but I'll get it for you. My favorite leaders also say, this is one of the things that lacks in politics in the United States in both parties. Hey, I was wrong. I made a mistake. My intentions were good, but I called the wrong shot here, or I handled that wrong. Forgive me, I'm going to get better next time. That's how you endear yourself to people, thinking you need to know everything. Think about this. Henry Ford starts Ford Motor Company, right? He didn't know everything to start that company. You have to know everything to get into. Who's going to fix the cars? How are they going to ship them? Where are they getting the tires? Think about what he didn't know. There's no dealerships because there's no freaking cars. Steve Wozniak's one of my dearest friends. He founded a company called Apple. They were going to be a board company. They had no idea there'd be an iPhone or iPads. You grow into these roles. What you have to link your confidence to is your intent. My intent is to serve. My intentions are to serve people. I'm a good man or a good woman. And that goodness should prevail. Remember this as a leader. You're always making people feel something. Always. So I have this in the book. You got to take control of what they're feeling. If you think they need to feel that you're an expert all the time and you have every answer all the time, you do not understand leadership. What they need to feel from you is that you love them, care about them, believe in them, and can show them how to do a little bit better, or will get them around someone or the answer for that. Love, care, believe, and show them how to do a little bit better. You do not have to have all the answers. That's the imposter lie. You don't have to know everything. You have to intend to serve. So even when we did this show today, I've got a few more of these today. I am totally present with you and totally confident that we're going to do a great job. Not because I have every answer, because I don't. But I intend to help you help these people listening today. And so I show up pretty confident that I know my intention is to do this. And that's where my confidence comes from. And then I've got a whole thing in there on association and that thermostat setting that'll help you as well. But that in and of itself is a huge breakthrough for a lot of leaders.
You write on page 87 about your inner circle, auditioning your inner circle. Can you share how we talked a little bit prior to recording about John Gordon, one of those guys who's become a good friend of yours, who's been on this show a few times. I remember John Calipari, when he came on the show, the coach at Kentucky, talked about you got to have your kitchen cabinet and had the importance of that kitchen cabinet, this is similar, right? Your inner circle. What does it mean to you to audition your inner circle and share the importance of those select few people?
The people that I surround myself with live at a higher thermostat setting, to go back to that analogy, in the area I need help in. So like John Gordon, for example, was faith for me, believe it or not business. I'm done. My thermostat setting in business is real high. So for me, I've got Phil Knight in that circle, right? I've got some, really significant business people in that circle. In my faith circle, I want to add men that are in the business world who live at a high 150 degree, because I believe through proximity, they heat me up from 75 to somewhere to where they are. I know this is true. For example, fitness. If you're around someone who's super fit every single day and you're not, you can't help but eventually eat a little differently, think a little bit differently, train a little bit differently. So when I'm interviewing someone for my inner circle, they don't have to have all of life figured out. They have to have the area that I need them in figured out. It could be in marriage, right? You're in the corporate world. There's all this, maybe there's travel, there's temptation. I just had Jeff Foxworthy, the comedian, on my show. Be like, why'd you have Jeff on? He's hilarious. That's not why I had him on. Jeff has this thing where he says, hey, man, when I traveled for the last 30 years of my life, he goes, I know me, man. He goes, I've never cheated on my wife, but I like ladies. And the reason I've never cheated on my wife is I put myself in situations, man, where I can't. So on the road, I don't go out. I get room service because I don't want to be. He goes, I'm fine in a bar, but I have a drink. I'm all right. I have 2. I don't know. 3. Who knows? So I don't put myself in those situations. Jeff's in that circle for me on marriage. Right? I got other ones in my financial. I got other ones in my fitness. I just had Phil Heath, 7-time Mr. Olympia, on my show. He's in my fitness circle. So I want people that live, people don't have to be perfect. They have to be great in the area you want growth in. And so John Gordon is in that faith area for me, where I've traveled with John. We've gone to UFC fights. We've done different things. The conversations with my circle in John's group, when you're in Las Vegas at a UFC fight, I promise you are very different than what most men are doing in Las Vegas when they go. And that's why that's so powerful for me. So I'm interviewing for the real goods.
How about the, the old quote, how to get a great wife, deserve one, how to get a great friend, deserve one. So what role do you, because I'm sure tons of people want you in their inner circle. Mm-hmm. What role do you think you play for those whose inner circles you're in?
That's a good question. You probably would have to ask them that. I'd like to think that I show up in a lot of those circles, though. I hope I show up in the father circle, the business circle, the integrity circle, the faith one. I think that what I bring to most people is that, and I learned this from my dad. My dad would, I've made hundreds of millions of dollars on very limited skills, brother. But the ones that I have, see, the key to success in the corporate world or in any world is truly identifying your own gifts and using them to serve others. But here's the thing that leaders don't get. You got to identify other people's gifts. You got to get great at going, wow, this is what you're great at, and then link it to the task you want them to do. Because the 2 or 3 things someone's great at, they know they are. And when you can say, hey, I see this in you, and then link it to what you want them to do, now you're leading them. Hey, man, you care so much, or man, your math skills, or your problem solving, or your intensity, or your work ethic. They go, you know what? I do have crazy work ethic. That's why you're going to prevail in this company. And you link it to what you want to do. Identify the gifts. My gifts are really simple, man. I got 2 or 3. My main gift, though, is my ability to read people and be present with them. Where'd that come from? When I was 5, my drunk dad would come through the front door. I had 3 little sisters and a mom. As a 5-year-old little boy, I'd have to read this man. Which dad's coming home? Is it drunk dad? And I'd read his physiology and how he would talk. Is his tie loose? Is his hair messed up? Is he slurring? How's he walking? And this little boy at 5 years old, I'm studying this man, and I go, it's drunk dad. My sisters need to go upstairs. Mom should go take a shower. And then I'm going to talk to dad and change his state, which is my second gift, my ability to communicate. If it was sober dad, we'll go in the backyard and shoot some hoops. So this skill, this adversity I went through gave me this main skill in my life that in business, it's my ability to read people, identify their giftedness, and communicate with them in such a way. I'm really limited other than that. I have 2 or 3 other things I'm pretty good at. I'm an intense dude. I'm a competitive dude. I care. But I've taken my gifts that God gave me or that the world developed in me or both and leveraged them. And you got to get good at this in leading people. Their giftedness, and don't make it generic. Oh, you're a superstar. Man, you're a rock star. No. What exactly is my gift? 2 or 3 of them. Link it to my career. Link it to what you want me to do. And now you're leading me like almost no one else. And last thing I'll say, when you truly identify someone's gifts that work with you, you're on a list of less than 3 or 4 people in their entire life who have ever told them that. Maybe the only one.
You become someone they revere forever when you point out the greatness in them.
Yeah, have this mindset of like a talent scout and have always be looking out for it and making sure that they know it. I mean, the two people that come to mind immediately, my high school football coaches, Bob Gregg and Ron Oliver, because they made me believe before I believed.
You got
and
it.
I'll never, ever, ever forget that feeling of, and then you kind of become something in it. And I always point back to them. And like now I see the power that we can do that for other people. We should really be intentional about that. I think that is a really powerful way to go about it.
You just worded it, brother. Most people would say it was a coach or a teacher or a parent. In the power of one more, here I am shamelessly promoting. And here's the reason that I'm promoting this. I want you to get the book. But I say about leaders, man, there's 3 chapters on leadership. There's 4 types of people in life. 1, they're not motivated at all. That's the masses. Then there's motivated people or motivating leaders. They get you to do things based on motive, which is good. Do this, you get a bonus. Do this, you get the car. Do this, you get the award. Powerful way to lead people. Low level, but it works. 3rd is inspirational. You move people. The root of inspiration is to be in spirit, to move people with energy, to move them in a way that's higher than just motives. And that's a great way to lead. Very few leaders get there. The 4th level is rarefied air. And that's to be aspirational, where people aspire to be like you, right? Most great leadership things are caught, not taught. They watch it in you and they see it. This is true for me as a dad as well. Your coaches were to the point where you wanted to prove them right. You wanted to be more like them. You wanted to live up to the belief they had in you. They were aspirational leaders. And that's the difference between greats and the pretty good ones. I would think that when people look at you, you come from a successful family. You're my dear friend, so I'm allowed to say this. You're a beautiful, articulate, successful person. I would think self-confidence was really something you had. Is that something you've struggled with or had to work on yourself in your life?
Yeah, I think anybody, I try to say to my kids, self-confidence, you have to earn self-confidence. You have to earn self-esteem. Nobody just bestows it on you and says, here it is, take it and go. I think particularly if you are in a family where people are excelling at the level they were excelling in my family, it's pretty big, excelling. So I was people, pretty much everybody in my house and in my cousins' era, everybody was running for president. So, it was like, that's how people were excelling. So I think you have to, and I would adjust that to maybe everybody in your family is a doctor or a preacher or, a pastor, whatever it is, a real estate person. Everybody, I think, has to find their own self-confidence and earn it. And I was an only girl. I have 4 brothers, and I was raised in a very testosterone-dominated arena.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I wanted to get my parents' attention, if I wanted to single myself out in this larger clan that I was in, I was going to have to find my own thing. I was going to have to work my ass off, and I was going to have to develop my own self-confidence in who I was, separate from being somebody's niece or daughter or cousin. And that was a really driving force in my life, and has been, for pretty much all my life, that I would be my own person, my own name, my own journey.
Yeah.
And that took a lot for me to craft that out. But with it came self-confidence.
Yeah. Thank God you did that, because I don't know that I think you can't give somebody something that you're not experiencing. It's pretty difficult to give the gift of that. And thank God you developed that, because you ended up creating a family that was very similar in the sense of achievement and public achievement and those things. And I've met your children. One of them, Patrick, I know far better than all the other ones, but they all seem to have that same sense of contribution, making their own way. They've sort of modeled Maria has this very beautiful nuance of very strong, but a kindness that comes with it simultaneously.
Thank
you. I think that's reflected in your children too, but they've all made their own way and are making their own way, even though they come from a family that's achieving. True, you probably had to instill that in them.
Well, I tried to talk to them about that. I tried to acknowledge that was going to be challenging for them, that they had a very famous last name. They came from, they had famous parents. They came from kind of a long lineage, and people would assume certain things about them, and that I understood that I had come from the same place. That might be something their dad hadn't understood, because I think it's very different when you're the one making the legacy. This is the one inheriting it and having to uphold it, and then trying to carve out your own version. And so I grew up in a legacy. I grew up with a family that said, here, look what we've done, match it, deal with it, honor it, take care of it, uphold it. What are you going to do with it? And then I think Arnold built his own legacy, right? And so our kids have had to deal with, like, okay, here it is. Do you want to honor it? Do you want to uphold it? Do you want to have anything to do with it? Do you want to be free from it? And so I've tried to have that conversation with them. You don't have to have anything to do with this if you don't want to. You can go off and do whatever you want to do. I think we were both very united in saying to them, you don't have to do what we're doing. You don't have to do what your grandmother, your grandfather did, but you have to do something. You have to find some way to give back to the world. You have to work. You have to develop a work ethic. You have to craft your own life, design your own life, but you don't have to carry what your dad's done, what your mom has done, what your grandmother, your grandfather have done, if you don't want to. If you do, great. But
I think, I don't mean to interrupt you, Maria, but I really think this is so important, because the people that listen to the show, by and large, are people that are they're becoming the one in their family for the most part. I call it the one, where you do sort of change your family tree forever, right? You're an achiever. And so most of you, maybe you're not going to be the president or the governor, but you're the breakaway person in your family. And then if you're going to be raising children in that environment, this lesson's huge, that these conversations have to happen. I noticed even with my son, Max, when he was younger, I started to sense this pressure that I wasn't putting on him, but our conditions put on him, that he had to live up to what dad did, or if I have an average life, it's going to be miserable because of what I came from. And I remember having these conversations with him, very similar to what you've had. So you parents that are listening to this, that are the achiever in your family, this is a really, really big deal. And if some of you don't know, I mean, Maria was First Lady of California when Arnold was the governor, and then she's also a Kennedy and a Shriver. And so there's a lot going on in that family. And, when you have uncles that are the president of the United States, and there's it's kind of a big version of what we're describing in our lives. But I just wanted to ask you that. And on that, it's like, I'm going to go to your books, because I just recommend you should read these books, many of them. And by the way, you should read her Sunday paper every Sunday that comes out. It's awesome.
Thank you.
If you're a personal development person, there's so much richness in this experience. And Maria approaches it. She said testosterone earlier. She even reminds me sometimes, dial that down a little bit, that there's not a lot of, I think often in self-help, personal development, I don't know what I would call it. I don't even really believe in these things, but sort of a feminine energy to the same topics that brings a nuance and a perspective. Don't you agree? That's different from someone else. And you bring that.
Well, thank you. And I think I just wanted to pick up on your thing about you're speaking to, quote, the one, people who are the one in the family who are breaking away, the achievers. I think there's so many ways that we don't talk about to, quote, break away or break a cycle. And it doesn't always have to be in being the, quote, successful one. There are so many different ways to break a cycle of silence that might exist in a family, a cycle of shame that might exist in a family, a cycle of, shame, anger, all of these things that exist in families. There's a way to break those cycles as well and be the one in that respect. So the one isn't necessarily the one making all the money.
Right.
It's the one who is following their path, I think, who has the courage and the bravery to chart their own course. And I think that's really, when we talk about feminine strength, I think I grew up in a time, my mother was certainly an incredibly strong woman, started Special Olympics, was tough, but she dressed like a man. She only had male friends. She went to work with a briefcase like a guy. She was fighting all the time to be at that table. She smoked cigars. She only just kind of, she was a force, right? Yeah. And I came into journalism when there were no women in it, right? And women were coming in and you had to wear a power suit and you had to work twice as hard. And if you had a baby, you had to come back in a week and you had to do a lot of things that perhaps this generation doesn't have to do. So I think what is the model of feminine, all-encompassing feminine strength? And I try to speak a lot to the ideal of holding these qualities of tenderness and toughness, strength and sexiness, feminine beauty and vulnerability, but also being aware that anger is in there, strength is in there, intelligence is in there, as is, these other kind of more traditionally feminine qualities. And I think that's the conversation when we think about feminine power that I'd like to be having this generation and others to have. So it's kind of being able to take care of yourself, but also need someone else and lean on someone else and be able to celebrate your femininity and your sexuality, but also hold your ground and have boundaries. And these are things you learn through life, but that was not part of the conversation when I was in my 20s or 30s.
By the way, I don't think, first off, everybody listen to this, you need to go rewind that part back and send that to your favorite woman not listening to the show right now. By the way, I want to just say, I don't think it's being said right now very much, what you just said, which is why you're so important. I think people know you. I know the multiple sides of you. Like, I think a lot of people are getting exposed to this side of you, maybe on my show for the first time, this person who really reflects on life, really cares about human beings. And I think I don't know. I think one thing we share in common is like we take our life seriously. I don't take myself, maybe sometimes I take myself too seriously, but I do take this gift of being here pretty darn seriously. Like I want to, I always call it maxing out, but I want to contribute as much as I can. I want to grow as much as I can. I want to pause as much as I can at this stage of my life too. That's become much more important. But one thing I did do, because my dad was good at this, my father could care less about material things, achievement. It was not even really discussed. It was, who are you going to be? Right. Not what are you going to be? And that's something that my dad said over and over. So I'm researching more about my friend here. And I read this quote. You said, I've learned that asking ourselves not just what we want to be. I'm like, this, my father said this to me, but who do we want to be is important at every stage also of our lives. And she has this book called Just Who Will You Be? Right. But would you talk about that? And this changes, Maria, wouldn't you agree, at different stages of our lives, but not enough people ask the question.
I think absolutely. I think, it's a good time to ask it coming out of this pandemic. Yeah. We're all very different people than we were before this pandemic. How are we coming out? How are we taking the gift of coming out and going out into the world? What have we learned? How have we changed? What did we notice during that time, right? Yeah. Who checked in on us? Who did we check in on? Who turned out to be important? What turned out to be important? So I think it's, I used to always say that I noticed growing up in a political family, it was the only profession that penalized you if you changed your mind. And still does, by the way.
You're right.
It doesn't allow for you to have been affected by life, to change your mind. You're always pointing, oh, you're a flip-flopper, you're a changer. Right. And I don't want to, to me, what's really troublesome, somebody at 50 who's exactly the same as they were at 30.
Me too.
No, that's a problem, because that means that for 20 years, nothing made you think, nothing made you reevaluate, nothing impacted you. Yes. How could that be? How could that be? Yes. Right? And so, like in the last book I wrote, I've been thinking, I write a lot about all the things that I was wrong about, that I've changed my ideas about, because life has happened to me, right? Yeah. My parents are both dead. I got separated after being with one person for 34 years. My kids are grown up. They've left their house. I've achieved certain things in my journalism career that, propelled me. So I've got to be different at this age than I was in my 20s.
That was one of my questions, Maria. What is one thing you used to really believe about life that you no longer believe? Just one thing.
Oh my God. I used to think that, weakness was kindness. I used to think that, being gentle was a sign of weakness.
Really?
I used to believe, oh my God, I have so many things I used to believe. I used to believe you had to earn your way into your parents' heart. I really believed that. I really believed that if I did well in my professional career, that my parents would love me. And if I didn't do well, they wouldn't. I was wrong about so many things. I believed that divorce was a huge sin. I believed that I grew up as a Catholic, I believed that, priests were infallible. I believed that women should be secondary citizens in the church. So today I'm angry at my church. I believed that the Democratic Party was the only way. I resigned from the Democratic Party. I believed, I never believed I'd be sitting here single at my age. I would have thought that was like, what's up with that girl, that she's single at that age? Does she not have anybody who loves her? What's wrong with her? So there's a lot of stuff that I thought, if I were that 30-something-year-old, 35, 40-year-old girl looking at me, that I would have made a judgment about.
So, hey, guys, when I love technology and a great idea revolutionizes an old industry. And by the way, if there's an industry that needs a revolution, I think you'd agree with me, it's the healthcare industry. It's not easy to find good doctors. And by the way, good doctors that are in your area that also take your insurance. And that's why I love ZocDoc. They are revolutionizing the healthcare industry and the way you get access to doctors. ZocDoc, by the way, is ZocDoc. Here's who they are. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare highly rated in-network doctors near you and instantly book appointments with them online. Tons of different reviews on the doctors, and they're local to you. You can find out if they take your insurance. I just did it for a tear I had in my shoulder. One day later, I'm in the doctor's office getting some help, getting an order for an MRI. So go to ZocDoc.com/Mylett and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then find and book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/Mylett. ZocDoc.com/Mylett. I think there's a way of like really feeling blessed and that you've got some gifts yourself and not letting it be like a big ego thing. I had a friend of mine one time when I was really worrying a lot. He goes, "Man, you got a huge ego." And I went, no one thinks I have a huge, that's not true at all. He goes, no, you're the center of the universe, man. And like your problems are way more important than everybody else's. Kind of to your point that you just said.
Was he saying it in a derisive way?
He was saying it like, wake up.
Oh, really?
Like, wake up. Like, hey, dude, like, yeah, you're not that big of a deal. And it's going to be okay. And other people have way bigger problems than you do. And like, maybe I have this phrase I use that I got from him. He's just a friend. He goes, whenever you feel helpless, get helpful. Help some other people. And I've like repeated that like hundreds of times. People listen to my work, they're like, "No, that's profound." I'm like, I got it from my buddy who told me I had a big ego.
It's a good one.
That's where it came from, but it's really true.
But can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Without a little bit of that ego, do you think you would have been as successful as you are?
No, meaning
like, because you have to.
Depends on what you define as success. Would I have made the money I made and reached?
Would you have made the money and felt that you've achieved something, which I think is very important. I think it gives you, achievement and success in like, that you're helping other people and people are buying your books and people are listening to your show. Sure. It's much easier to walk through the day and slap your hands and say it's going to be a great day. Yeah. When you have some things under the belt.
Yeah. Let me tell you what I did.
And you kind of need like.
You do. You got to have a lot of confidence, and a lot of belief.
And you got to be hungry, and you have to think.
Yeah. I think confidence and ego are different, and I'll tell you what happened to me when I was young, since you asked, everyone can listen in. I met Wayne Dyer really young. Do you remember Wayne Dyer? He was a thought leader, kind of like a Tony Robbins guy back in the day.
Okay.
Maybe a little new agey kind of back in the day, but really profound guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, I met him, and we got to know one another very well, became lifelong friends, and he said, "Ed, I think you're going to change the world," and gave me all this belief. And he goes, "Do me a favor and like never attach all of your confidence to like your abilities because you'll always be chasing that tail. It'll never be enough. You'll never be good enough. And he goes, attach your confidence to your intentions.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, he goes, Ed, you're a real good man. Now, God gave you some good voice and pretty good brain, and you're a hard worker, but attach your confidence to your intentions. And so, like, even before I speak, or even meeting you today, or a business meeting I go into, my confidence booms, but it's like, I'm a good guy, and I want to do well. My intention, even probably before you walk on stage, it's like, I don't know that you go, I'm the funniest dude in the world, but I bet you there's a party that's like, I intend to make these people laugh.
Yeah, and you need to have a little bit of I'm the funniest guy in the world, because you need to approach things like, I can do this.
Sure.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
it's not like I'm better than everybody, but I can do this.
Yeah, I think that's me. And also, for me, there's faith involved, so I'm like, kind of whatever I'm good at came from God, although I've worked very hard at it.
Yeah.
So, but I think all my life, like anybody, I probably struggled with ego / confidence / humility, and where's that blend? My favorite people in my life, nuance, humility, and confidence. They toe that line very well.
Yeah.
Because my friends that are super confident with no humility, they make you sick.
Yeah.
And they wear you out, and they eventually burn out or mess up.
Yeah.
My friends with tons of humility
Yeah.
and no confidence, they drain you.
Yeah.
They're always down. They're
Right.
always complaining. You're always picking them up. So it's
Yeah.
those people kind of that toe the line, at least
Yeah.
to me, that seem to be the people I want around me.
Yeah. You got to harness it.
Yeah.
It's like you got to, like, if you want to be as good as you possibly can at whatever you do, you gotta believe in yourself.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you believe in yourself to the detriment of everybody you run into.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, just in the comedy clubs, like, there would be guys who would roll in and cut everybody else on the lineup. You know, be 10 comedians waiting to go on, and they walk in like, I'm the guy, and then like cut everybody and like do an hour, and then everybody's like, oh, it's with this guy, and you know. And some people would do it before they've earned it. Like, some guys, you're like, no doubt, you could do whatever you want to do. We're all happy you're here. And other guys like just got some success, and they start throwing that weight around, and you're like, ugh. That's gross. And because they didn't have what you're saying, like they lost the humility part of it.
Humility and some self-awareness, don't you think, too? Like, just a little self-awareness. Jay Leno on your show that I was just listening to on the 4th of July, I didn't agree with the way he said it, but I know what he meant. On your show, he goes, I think the key to success is low self-esteem.
Yeah.
And then I went, that's totally backwards. But then he kind of elaborated. He goes, meaning, I don't always think I'm the funniest guy in the room. I wanted the best lighting guy, the best producer. I surrounded myself with good people. I think what he really meant is the key is humility.
Yeah,
I think which is not low self-esteem. But I thought it was a really good point.
It is a good point. It's all a balance, isn't it? Because like when you say the low self-esteem thing, like I've been doing this 30 years. And I'm on tour now, and I'm moving in. I have a new act, so I'm digging deeper and trying to come up with it. And it's actually scary.
Yeah.
I've been doing it 30 years. I have 1,000 people in the audience waiting with their tickets to see what's going to happen tonight. But they don't know that I'm like,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't know if low self-esteem is the right word, but it's nice to feel vulnerable. It makes you stay working hard at it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like if I just thought, oh, whatever I say is going to be great, I probably would start to deteriorate.
I know exactly what you mean, because I'm speaking, and I just finished kind of a tour of my book, and I had a talk that I became very comfortable with giving, and it worked, and everyone liked it, or I think most people liked it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to keep doing it. I want to do something new.
Talk a little bit about preparation for you, because everyone right now, they've got an opportunity to be doing that. How important is preparation to your self-confidence and your performance?
It's been one of the big kind of nuggets of my career to be, you know, it's funny, I played 25 years, Ed, 25 years of professional baseball. It's hard to believe. And I never played, I had over 15,000 at-bats in the major leagues. And I never had one game that I did not do my pregame routine. Not one. And on those days that there was games, sometimes we played extra innings, 15, 16 innings, and the game ended at 2:30 in the morning, and we had a day game at 1 o'clock in the hot summer of Texas or something. And my routine wasn't, 30 minutes. It may be 3.5 minutes. It was condensed. It was concentrated, but I never would get, and that's incredible. That's one of the things that I'm most proud of. People say, oh, well, 696 home runs, RBIs, runs scored. to me, that little data point that I told you is what I'm most proud of, because again, I am process driven. I am obsessed with the process, doing things the right way, working on your fundamentals. And every day there's a way that you can get your fundamentals a little bit better. You can get a little bit smarter. And today in 2020, there's so much access. I mean, you don't have to go to a library and drive down to downtown to go to the library building. Now you can just go Google and YouTube, and there's so much information that's what I get my highs from.
Yeah, brother. And the other thing that separated you and does to this day in business and everybody is most people, their work ethic or preparation level can be bought. So with a certain amount of success, they get a little loose. You know exactly, you played with guys like this, right? We know them in business. A little bit of success, they get to a certain income level of its business, and it gets bought. For really big time players, I think their preparation and focus level increases the more successful they become. But I'm always fascinated because I wasn't kidding. For me, you're the greatest baseball player that I've ever seen. And arguably, guys, and he'll probably make me edit this out, but he could potentially go down as the greatest player at two positions, which no one else can claim.
Thank you.
Shortstop and third base in the history of a sport, to potentially be the greatest shortstop or third baseman or both is just, it's unbelievable what you achieved, especially if everybody knew where you came from, which we don't have time to get into today. What moved you more and does today? The fear of failing or the desire to succeed and win? Like, really, what moves you? I'm curious, like, even to this day, bro, or is it different from when you were 25 years old?
I think what I'm scared about is going into something, any project, and not being prepared. I remember having nightmares that, I would be playing in New York, a day game. Of course, my boss is George Steinbrenner, but I always had this like fear that I would oversleep and miss the game. And I've always wanted to be, look, if I went to a college, it certainly wouldn't have been Harvard or Yale, right? I'm kind of the middle of the school guy. But again, if you have the heart and you have the passion and you have the will, there is no limits of what we can do in this country. There are no limits, and I mean that. And if you're working 9 to 5, the guy that's working 9 to 9, even though the 9 to 5 may be higher IQ or anything like that, the 9 to 9 ultimately is going to have an advantage. And you compound that over days, weeks, years, decades. And the one thing I can tell you about Jennifer and I, we are either gonna win or we're gonna die. But we're not gonna give up. And I played against people like that, and so have you, Ed. And you just rather just go to the next person, because that person that won't give up, there's a Rocky Balboa and a Rambo-esque that is pretty admirable.
Yeah, I learned that too, brother, from losing my dream. Obviously, I wasn't as talented as you, but you know that I wanted to play in the bigs too. And, I don't know that I gave it everything I had when I was in college or when I first started to play. And I have a dream. And I share this often with people. It's a nightmare. I'm 50 years old next year, and I've done pretty well in business and in life. But when you don't give everything to a dream, like, I think one of the things you're most proud of is, hey, man, I gave everything I had to that sport, right? I know through being with you and watching Jen, like, you just can't work. I mean, it's just unbelievable worker. And I didn't, everyone. I just want to share this with you as I ask Alex another question too, is I have nightmares at 50 years old. And when I give my talks to sports teams, I tell them, and the nightmares, and I have it regularly, we all have that nightmare we know we're in, but we can't get out of. And mine is I can hear them announcing my name. Starting in center field, number 8, Eddie Mylett, and you're, and I can't get in the stadium. I'm locked out. I've got my uniform on, and I'm telling the security guard, let me in, let me in. They just called my name. I'm the starting center field. He goes, you can't get in, man. You can't get in. And it's me at 50 years old, 30 years later, wanting that dream and regretting so deeply that I didn't give everything I had, that it's to this day haunts me. And that's why I went and won in business. Like, never again. If I fail, it's going to be going out with everything I've got. I'm never going to have that nightmare of knowing, of wondering the rest of my life what could have been. I'm never going to have that. And it's something, obviously, in that sport you don't have to worry about. But I'm curious to ask you, brother, I watch you with the preparation part. How important have your mentors been? I mean, I see you with Warren Buffett. I see you with these other people. You've had access to some of the best, but talk about that. I think everybody listening needs to find their mentor, even if it's virtual through a podcast or something like that. How about that element for you? How critical has that been?
It's been vital and paramount in so many ways, Ed, because I'm someone that I never sit around saying, I can't do it because I came from a single mother, or I can't do it because I didn't graduate from college, or I can't do it because I was too busy playing baseball. I've always figured out a way, and I love playing chess. And in many ways, it's a microcosm of life. There's chess pieces, and you have to be able to play them strategically. I'm a big believer in the long game. And if you believe in the long game and not the short game, mentors and allies are going to be a ginormous part of your business trajectory. And I think young people do not spend enough time building out their network, watering the plants, calling in. I mean, right now is a perfect time to look in your black book and reach out to 10 to 20 people daily on email, say hello, send good energy, thinking of you, sending positive energy. You're going to be great. If you need any, I've sent out probably 15 emails a week to people that are not, let's just say, in my first team.
Yeah.
They're secondary and tertiary kind of relationships. Is there anything I can do to be helpful? Just offering yourself. And I think in times like these is where you have an opportunity as a friend, as a mentor, as a business associate to spread a lot of goodwill and also help someone when they need you most. So mentorship has been a huge part of my life.
And you pay it forward. Everyone, Alex just said something huge. I'm so glad we're doing this, bro. Like, obviously, blessed this time. If you're feeling helpless, get helpful, as he just said. You can't simultaneously feel helpless when you're being helpful to other people, reaching out, offering assistance. And the other thing, everybody, through a time like this is you don't have to believe everything you think. Not every thought you have is true. We all have these thoughts running around in our heads. Take time to be intentional about your thinking. Don't buy everything you're saying to yourself. It's not all true. We all have a BS meter we give ourselves as well. Speaking of winning, this is what I want everybody to get, because I want to know what you did. You haven't always won. This is a guy who went with 3 losses in a row, 688 days of your life without a win. I want everybody to think about that. You may be listening to the show today and you're in the loss phase. You're in the down on the canvas phase. You know, coronavirus has hurt your business. You're going through a divorce, a bankruptcy. Business isn't where it is. You, as a professional athlete, guys, 688 days without a win, 3 consecutive losses. What did you do to turn that around mentally? There's got to be some specific thing you started to do, brother, that you weren't doing during that phase. What was it?
Yeah, you know, and I made a couple mistakes that led into that, and then even a couple mistakes during that 688 days, and it was the hardest, definitely the hardest time of my life. And I think I just fell back into it. I think, so what happened with me, with quick overview of my career, I came out, shot out of the cannon, 12-0, won my first 12 fights, finished most of them in the first period, or in the first round, became a top 3 guy in the world. You know, the media's talking, is this the next big guy? We want to see him. He's in Bellator. We want to see him fight the UFC champion. We want to see him in the UFC. So everybody had all these high hopes for me. And once again, it felt foreign because, you know, that small voice inside my mind kept getting louder and louder. Michael, you're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to win this much. You aren't the champion that everybody says you are, right? And even though in my heart of hearts, you know, being a God-fearing man, knowing that God pulled me into this sport and pushed me in the direction of mixed martial arts, to be put on a platform, not just to be good, but to be great, not just to be great, but to be impactful, to be put on a platform where people say, man, that guy right there, deep in the 4th round, deep in the 5th round, when he's huffing and puffing, he's bleeding, he's barely picking himself back up to make his way back to the stool. And then he comes out in the 5th round and then wins the fight in the 5th round. That guy right there, because he was able to pick himself back up, I can too, in my business, in my relationships, in my walk. So I just truly believe that God had me in this sport for a reason, but there still was those times where you take it for granted. You take your mindset for granted. You think, okay, athletics or my athletic abilities or the hard work will get me there. And while it will, it's probably one of the most important aspects of it, taking extreme ownership of what's going on in between your ears. You're what you are and where you are because of what has gone into your mind and what continually goes into your mind and what you continually speak about and talk about inside your mind. And I took it for granted, and I didn't take ownership of what was going on inside my mind. So I lost my first fight, and I made a couple mistakes. The first mistake was, I was up for Fight of the Year with Eddie Alvarez. They wanted to invite me out to the World MMA Awards, and I said no, I don't want to go. I didn't take any interviews. I wanted to hide. I wanted to hide from my failure. So that was the first mistake I made. The second mistake I made is I had skill amnesia. I lost that fight. All of a sudden, I just forgot how good I was. I forgot how powerful I was, how strong I was, how athletic I was, not to mention how gifted I was by God to be put into this sport. And then the third thing I did was I found comfort in that jail cell of the self-pity. I'd make jokes like, well, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose 3 in a row. I would make jokes out of my losses. And I think the worst thing we can do, and of course it's a defense mechanism. We all do it. We make fun of ourselves, or we downcut ourselves, or we make fun of our own shortcomings, because I'd rather make fun of myself than actually accept the fact that this is a season right now and I'm going to get better. As you know, in life and business, relationships, walk, everything, it's ebbs and flows, it's peaks and valleys, and it's ups and downs. And I just took extreme ownership, realizing that I could sit here on this computer right now, looking at and speaking to a man that I admire, a man that I want to be like. And Ed Mylett, the great Ed Mylett, could tell me, hey, Michael, you're this and you're that, and you're going to be great. But if I don't truly believe it, I'm never going to get there. And of course, I appreciate people like you, or the next 5, 10 people that may say these things, but we have to realize that what's going on inside of our minds are the greatest impression we can make is on ourselves. The greatest person that we can build up is ourselves. The greatest person that we can speak into is ourselves. And we spend all this time talking to other people and building other people up, and we just act like we don't deserve those things. And I did that for a really long time, and then all of a sudden I just realized, man, somebody's got to be the best. Why shouldn't it be me? If I have all these things available to be able to go out and do great things and make an impact in people's lives, I really am, giving God and my almighty God the short end of the stick by me not believing in myself, so I can go out there and accomplish great things.
Oh my gosh, this is an epic show. Oh my gosh. I want a couple of things I want to unpack. I want to go right back to you. So first thing, I love what you said about right at the end there, about when you don't do everything you possibly can to reach a platform and the influence of other people, you're shortchanging God. And that is the ultimate leverage most people of faith could possibly get on themselves. So, and I love getting leverage on myself. I don't want to let my family down. I don't want to let my friends down. Those are huge things, but I really don't want to let God down. And neither do any of you listening to this. Second thing is that even at the highest levels, guys, in life, all of us, myself, Michael, we struggle with self-confidence. It's a battle all of the time. And third, there are things you can do to alleviate that pain you're putting yourself through. And I know for you, visualization's been a really big part of things. I teach something called like a highlight reel or an emotional flood. I've had David Nurse on who talks about that in his book. I think let's get granular for a minute. Do you do that? And if you do, what's your version of that look like, and how do you do it?
I do, yeah. And I actually the first time I ever read about a mental highlight reel was Gary Mack's book called Mind Gym.
Yeah.
And it was in college a long time ago. And for me, my mental highlight reel, what's great about my mental highlight reel is half of it has nothing to do with fighting. Half of it may be business. Half of it may be, a lot of it is wrestling, college wrestling, beating Kyler Sanderson on senior night by 8 points when I needed to beat him to get that higher ranking to be able to get a great seed at the NCAA tournament. Right. And that's a name that a lot of people may not even know because it was college wrestling. But for me, at that moment of my life, when I put on that black and gold singlet and I put on that headgear, it was time to go. And that moment, at that greatest moment of opportunity, I needed to be enough. And not only did I need to be enough, but I needed to be great that night. And I was great. While that performance itself isn't going to win me world titles, it isn't going to make me millions of dollars. That performance for me is on my mental highlight reel because I can close my eyes and I can remember what that turn center arena smelled like, what it looked like, how big the crowd was, what was at stake, all of these minute details, so that when I make that walk to the UFC octagon, which I had never done before, by the way, on the biggest stage that I ever could have asked for, almost 2 million pay-per-view buys, co-main event of a Conor McGregor pay-per-view. Right. I had been there before. And I just remember the greatest thing about that walkout was that I had visualized it so many times over the last decade, by the way, because even though I was fighting in Bellator, I was never training to fight these guys in Bellator. I was training to fight the #1 guy in the world, whether it was Benson Henderson, whether it was Rafael Dos Anjos, Anthony Pettis, Eddie Alvarez, Conor McGregor, Khabib, all of these guys that have been UFC champions over the last decade, who I was never going to fight in that moment because I was signed with Bellator, but I was training to fight them. I wasn't just training to beat the guy in front of me. I was training to be the #1 guy in the world. So now I get the opportunity to step in the octagon, and it was as if God pulled this weight off of me that had been there for a very long time, because now he finally said, son, through your persistence, through your patience, and through your belief and your faith, now you can finally go be at your best. And I feel like when I stepped in the cage that night, I could have stepped in there with King Kong, and I was going to get that win in the first round. And it was because of the visualization and the winning through the patience and the perseverance of the last 12 years that just gave me the best opportunity in my life. And man, I feel like, without sounding too overconfident, man, I just truly believe that I'm going to win that UFC gold in the next 12 months, because I believe I have already been there.
I do too. There's so much there. I don't even know where to go. I mean, the first part, I think, is having been there, your mind moves towards what you're most familiar with on a very regular basis.
Tell me about those challenges. A lot of the audience out there, first-time entrepreneurs, salespeople, people trying in the grind, in your 20s. Been there, done that, guys. You are not alone, trust me.
Right.
So share with me kind of how because you didn't start out with $200 million net worth.
No, my gosh, no. You know what? Being an entrepreneur, at least this is my experience, it's riddled with false starts too. So it's not all bad. You think you've made progress, right? All entrepreneurs, and then you take 2 back and then 3 steps the wrong way, right? 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. So I had all kinds of false starts, big time when I started in business. And I just struggled and struggled, and it got to the point for me where I almost quit several times. I mean, to be honest with you. And someone asked me the day, because we're here oceanfront, and this guy's interviewing me for a book, and he goes, what are you the most grateful for at this house? And I said, probably the fact that my backyard's an ocean, right? Like that is. But then I reflected on something, which was that we got so broke when I was an entrepreneur that I had a home foreclosed on. And then after that, I had a car repossessed. In fact, my wife's car was repossessed. And then we had our electricity turned off. And those are all bad things, but anybody that's ever had this happen, this is the worst. The worst thing that happened to me was the water got turned off at our apartment. And so when you don't have water, you can't cook and you can't shower. And so we would have to get up in the morning, and it's cold, and we'd have to get our stuff gathered up, our clothes and everything, and gather our stuff down and go down to the pool at our apartment complex, and we would have to shower every morning in that pool, at the shower at the pool. And I remember being ashamed of that because we were newlyweds, and I remember thinking if I could ever change this. And I remember having to fake it so badly, right? Because I'm that broke, and then I had to leave the shower pool and go out and pretend to be a successful entrepreneur, to pretend to lead people, pretend to influence people. And so I told him the other day with the book, I said, the most grateful thing I have is the ocean, but I said I have this weird trigger, and I'm not kidding you, that goes off, that many mornings I'm grateful, I'm serious, when I pull the faucet, the water comes out of the shower and hits me in the face, and I'm grateful. It's like the smallest things. You never forget those times. And so, yeah, the ocean's amazing. Believe me, I pinch myself. But there's a lot of mornings where I go, psh, and I go, thank you. Thank you. I'm so grateful. So I relate to those struggles that all entrepreneurs have. That's why I admire them. That's why when we meet each other, like you and I do, we're kindred spirits immediately. There's a respect, because I don't know all of your story, but I know to get where you've gotten, you've gone through multiple difficult times. And so all entrepreneurs sort of have that on the other side. And so I have that for you. And
For sure.
I sense that you do with me too.
So tell me about WFG. Okay. So when did that come into play? What is WFG? Okay. Tell me all about it.
I got into I had a couple blessings. So I'm out of college. I get released from playing baseball. And here's this success dude story, okay? I end up back at home living at my mom and dad's house in the same bed, same teddy bear on the bed, same posters on the wall, and I'm unemployed, completely without work. Watching Maury Povich every single day and Jerry Springer. Like my whole day was like, anyone see Maury Povich? My whole day was like, is he the daddy? You know that little thing where
you are not the daddy.
You are not the father, right? That was like, I waited all day for that. Like that was the highlight of my day, right? I'm serious too, which is pretty pathetic. And so my dad had recently gotten sober. My dad had a drinking problem. My dad's now been sober for years, but my dad ended up getting sober, and he came home from one of his meetings that they go to when they're in sobriety. And he goes, hey, I got you a job tomorrow morning. you got to go to McKinley Home for Boys in San Dimas. And I'm like, what is that? He goes, I don't know, but this guy at the meeting says he's got you a job at $6 an hour. You get your butt over there tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
So the next morning, I go to McKinley, which is in San Dimas down the road here. And I walk in and I said, yeah, I'm here for the job. And they're like, what job and who are you? I'm like, I don't know what the job is. And but my name's Eddie Mylett. And they said, well, we don't know who you are and there's no job. And they said, well, who's hiring you? And I said, I don't know. I don't know the guy's name. And they're like, so you're here for a job, you don't know what it is, and you don't know the dude's name. And I'm like, wait a minute. The dude's name's Tim.
Right,
Tim. My dad said Tim. And they go, Tim who? And I said, I don't know, but he's an alcoholic. And they go, oh,
Tim the alcoholic, yeah.
Tim, right? So they bring me to this home. It changed my life, brother. I'm going to tell you this. That's how I ended up in the business. McKinley is a campus of group homes of boys.
Right.
Hundreds of them. And my boys were 7 to 10 years old. They're wards of the court. They're either orphaned or most of my boys were molested by family and removed from their home. These little precious boys, right? And all they wanted to be was loved, cared for, believed in, helped, right? And so all of a sudden I'm this young 21, 22-year-old guy and I'm thrown into this home and I basically live with these boys. Holidays, mornings, breakfast, school, when they get back from school, how was school? I became like a dad, a big brother to these little boys, and my life literally in that time transformed into, I wasn't about me anymore. It wasn't just my ego or wanting to be rich or famous. All of a sudden it was like, man, I love serving people. I love helping people. I love making a difference. Like those eyes these boys had, these abused kids have these eyes that are different.
So, you know, we're all on our journey trying to kind of figure our lives out, figure out who we are, what our gifts are.
Yes.
Was that a moment for you where you went,
Bro.
my calling is to serve?
It was my calling. And what's amazing about it is I thought I knew what my gifts were. Because everyone had always told me when I was little what my initial gifts were. Everyone puts you in that story when you're little, right? Remember my parents would always introduce me as, Eddie's shy. He's shy. That's the worst thing you could say for kids. So guess what I was? I'm shy. I'm introverted, right?
Right.
So my gifts changed. And so what happened was, right when I got to work there, I spent there a couple years, the same time, my best friend's dad called me and said, hey, I know you got a stable job. You could start in this business part-time. It's a financial business. I'm like, I have no background in finance. I hate money. I don't know anything about it. I didn't take a math class in college. It's boring to me. My dad's a banker. No. But then they brought me down there and they were like, no, this is really about helping people. And I went, okay, you got my buzzword. This is about contribution. I'm like, wait a minute. And you could kind of make the money you thought you were going to make playing baseball.
Right.
And I said, here's the deal. I'm not leaving my boys. I won't leave these boys. They're like, you can start part-time. And so then I spent time in the business part-time, growing my practice, growing my business, except I came at it differently. Instead of approaching it just like a stud and an ego and about making money, I approached it from the standpoint of serving people and making a difference. And my following exploded. And then it got to the point where it just financially, I had to leave the group home and spend my time in my full-time business. So that's how I got into the business.
You just mentioned something that's so important to me and something that I'm constantly preaching. You know, there's a quote by a guy named Zig Ziglar. You should look him up if you don't know who he is. He said, you can have everything you want in life if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. Yeah. Ed is here. We're overlooking the most beautiful view I've seen personally in my life in this magnificent home with his beautiful wife. And, you know, he didn't get here by accident. The switch, I think, is he decided to stop thinking and working for himself and start thinking and working for everybody else. Is that accurate?
It's accurate. And there's multiple benefits to that because, you know, that's why I love your work. That's why when you asked me to do this and I started to look at what you talk about, like, I'll do it, right? And the reason is because I love what you stand for, because this is so important that people get. One, people matter, things don't. Things will never, like this view's amazing, but it's there every morning, right? So it does, you know, the Ferrari out front is awesome, but it's not as awesome as it was the first day I drove it. I'll be honest with you. I like it. And by the way, it's better than a Camry, it's better than a Hyundai. I'm not saying that. I hate when rich guys go, material things don't matter. I'm not saying they don't matter. I'm saying they don't endure, right? Serving people endures. And so, but the power of putting yourself where you're serving another person, here's what it does. It's beautiful. It takes the pressure off you.
Yeah.
Every sales call, every encounter, every conversation, if it's about them and not you, the pressure's off you to say the perfect thing, to get it exactly right. As long as your intentions are good, people sense intent. Long term, people will sense your spirit. They'll sense your intention. They sense your energy. Influence and persuasion. That's why I like you. Like immediately, I'm like, remember I told you, have I known you before? It's because people respond to what they feel, which is energy, way more than what they hear or see. And people can smell a phony a mile away. They can smell it. They can sense it.
But people can also sense, for the most part, sincerity, generosity, genuineness. And I really am in a position where I want to give you something and serve you and make a difference, and I care about you. That's a powerful energy that's rare. And if you're that way in business, I don't care what your business is, tech, speaking, computers, dry cleaning, sports, if you're that type of person, eventually your energy wins.